Well, hello, whoever, wherever, whenever you are. Welcome. Thank you for showing up. Trying to thread a needle here. Things that make you go, indeed. Well, some people already know part of this story, but a lot don't. A couple of years ago, maybe a year, somewhere between a year and a half ago, I was hanging out in a rough neighborhood, okay? For a variety of reasons that I need not go into here, I saw fit to spend a little bit of time in something called the predcatcher community. It's a neighborhood of the great and glorious land of Utopia, where a group of really strange and frankly not friendly people hang out. Some of them are dedicated to the noble cause of predator catching child predators. What they do is they go into chat rooms where children hang around, in gamer chat rooms and stuff, but these particular people are adults who are working with police departments, the legitimate ones. There are some who are not legitimate, so you've got to be careful. But the legitimate ones are working with their police departments, and they will spend some time in chat rooms posing as children and seeing if any really nasty adult predator characters hit on their profiles. And then when they get someone who's really definitely trying to contact and exploit real children, the decoy, the adult pretending to be a child, gets the adult who is a predator to agree to a meeting, and then the police show up and you get these dramatic, what's that guy's name? Chris Hansen, I think, is the one who made this whole pursuit famous, and now there's a few others that actually do it on real TV. Anyway, there is a community in YouTube where these people hang out, but they're also, it's kind of a drama community where, in fact, that is also set up as part of the catcher thing, because predators will try to get jobs with the predator catcher channels so that they can have a legitimate reason to go into children's chat rooms. And so what the predator catcher group has done has they set up forums in different places, including YouTube, where there's a lot of drama. And they tell dirty jokes and they get in fights and everything. And as a result, they can smoke out and be rid of people who don't really belong there. Now, I went into the community myself. I forget. Oh, the reason it came up in my feed was that I have done some commentary about the whole topic, but there was a particular individual who is a predator who had been a problem, which is one of the reasons why I sometimes talk about this type of crime. And he was the major topic in the predcatcher community because he was distributing child pornography, and he was passing himself off as one of them, and even got one of them to include him in some of their live catches. So they were going on about this guy, and what was he doing, how did he get away with what he was doing, and blah, blah, blah. He hadn't been prosecuted, he'd been arrested, and there was a warrant, and da-da-da-da. So they were having all this drama about that. He was trying to get his friends to go in and pretend he was innocent and defend him. And it came up in my newsfeed because that guy's name, his legal name, had been on his channel, had also been attacking me because he's a Massachusetts. He's actually a member of a Massachusetts organized crime ring. He lives in Texas now. I think he still lives down here. But he grew up partly in Brockton, Massachusetts. And if you're into FBI, crime, mafia, crime history, you look up Brockton, Brockton, Massachusetts, comma, I can't pronounce, I really can't spell it's an Italian last name, Anguillo, Anguilo, Capo, C-A-P-O. Capo is a high-ranking position in the Italian mafia. Well, this guy, Jerry Anguillo, and that appears, and in fact, because of the way the search engines, they will take approximate spelling, so if I've got it slightly wrong, you could still find it. FBI Mafia History, in their own website, tells the story of Jerry Anguillo, who was the capo, who lived in Brockton, and who was in charge of the casinos and bars around the southern general area of Massachusetts and Rhode Island and Connecticut, that whole area, which is where I grew up. Now, one of these, I've talked in other videos, and if you're from the quilting community and you're dipping here for a little bit of drama, let's go check out Good Stuff Ninja. When she's not showing good stuff, she's talking bad stuff. Okay, here I am. So, the story is this, okay? In some of my situations, I got some people seriously angry with me because I am speaking about a serious criminal problem in Massachusetts from my little catbird seat down here in Texas. And somebody that was angry at me contacted this guy, Ed Staires, this young man's name, and got him to start posting attacks on me. And I'm thinking, like, who the heck is this? And the person who was angry at me was actually a predator in the predcatcher community herself, was Clovis Harmon, okay? I don't even know if she's still alive. I know she's been very, very sick. She's not as old as I am, but she has had a long-term battle with COPD and, you know, all the stuff that goes along with that. So I don't even know what the story is with her lately. But a couple of years ago, she was really, you know, she was on a rampage. Because, in fact, she was part of this child trafficking ring that does run in YouTube, as well as other places. So anyway, here's the predcatcher communities just tootling along, doing their little reality TV live catch stuff. And this guy, Ed Staires, who had been kind of attacking me in a personal feud on behalf of Clovis Harmon, it was in all the headlines in the predcatcher community because they had discovered that he had been arrested on a warrant for child pornography at the same time as a gay guy in Florida was paying for him to have plane tickets so that he could go to out-of-state live catch opportunities and be standing there when the predator catcher people and the police were, you know, and there was a whole big brouhaha about that. So while they're having that fight, it's showing up in my feed. I'm going like, what the heck? Is this the same Ed Staires? Sure is. Then I noticed that the predator catchers all thought he was just a lone wolf individual creep. And they didn't see that his friends who were defending him who are mostly the people that hang around with Terry Joyce over in Sewertown. The great and glorious land of Utopia is a real place with real neighborhoods now. We got that disgusting sinkhole neighborhood called Sewertown, right? So I noticed that they were treating him as, well, he's just an individual and we got to just push him out and we'll be fine. And I'm like, no. He's working with an organized ring. Part of what he had been doing to me, which didn't scare me at all, I laughed about it, was bragging about how his father, the late Ed Staires Sr., had been a drinking buddy of Jerry Angularo up in Brockton. Ed Staires did not know, because his family moved down to Texas at some point when he was a teenager, so he only grew up partly up there in Massachusetts. He did not know that my late brother-in-law was a bartender in Brockton. He's an ex-Marine bartender. And Jerry Angularo, the Petrarca crime family capo, ran all the bars in Brockton. Capiche? So I'm laughing my butt off as this guy thinks he's going to scare me on behalf of all people, Clovis Harmon. Clovis Harmon herself had been hauled up for questioning by FBI, although she was never charged, because she had a Yahoo group back before they even had YouTube, when all you could do was have these little text chats in Yahoo. And she had a group there called something about Elite Delete. And they were trying to run this decoy stuff. Except that they weren't catching anybody. None of the people they were talking to about child pornography were showing up in arrest records. Right? Makes you very suspicious right there. And in fact, at one point, she had filed a complaint. No, she had joined a class action. That's what it was. Facebook had an issue with a whole bunch of accounts being accessed or hacked. And a bunch of people signed on to some kind of court thing or investigation, make reports to the FBI. So she got to be part of that. Well, while they were looking at her computer on behalf of this Facebook hacker thing, she had forgotten that she had files and files full of child pornography on her laptop. And the FBI agent, whose job at that point was checking a Facebook account breach problem with I guess there were like 300 or 400 accounts that had been breached or some stupid thing like that. So they're only allowed to investigate what they're assigned. So he's assigned to investigate a Facebook breach. And he's like, what the heck is this? So she's called in for questions. What are these files doing on your computer? She then gets her crooked county sheriff. There's a whole story behind that, the whole big soap opera. She gets her crooked sheriff to say that, well, she's helping them with child abuse cases. That's why she has that. She needs those pictures to help train people to be decoys, which is BS. You talk to any of these people that are involved, and you could probably find out from your local police department if they're running some kind of volunteer task force where they'll train people how to do this work and work with them. They don't make you sit and look at child porn, which is a crime in and of itself. It's not part of the training. Okay? But somehow or other, that was her public claim, was why she was never charged or anything. I know why she was never charged. You know, capiche? So anyway, she was mad at me over things having to do with Massachusetts, even though she herself is from Missouri. She brags that she found a guy in Massachusetts who was going to fix my wagon, and she brags about Ed Staires. I look up who Ed Staires is. I listen to him brag about his daddy. I find out that he's telling the truth about who his daddy was. And nobody's asking too many questions about why his whole family suddenly decided to head out to Texas. I mean, there's good reasons to be down here, too, but one wonders about his reasons. Okay, that's the background of what's going on now. So there I was, it was kind of funny. I went into the predcatcher community, and I posted a comment under one of the videos where they were yelling and having their knockdown, drag-out brawl about Ed Staires. And I said, you guys are treating this one as an individual, but he's part of a ring. And he's involved with X, Y, and Z. And I mentioned the whole thing with Clovis Harmon and how they had to watch out and consider that they've got a group of people, and why someone is paying for plane tickets for this drug addict to travel from state to state to be part of their stings. They really had to raise it up above the level of he's just an individual creep. And I wrote it down. I wrote out the history very carefully. I'm much more coherent when I write than when I speak. And they didn't know who I was. A couple of them said, this must be an AI, because I used long sentence. When I quit, I said, look, I'm not an AI, I'm a person. How come you think I'm an AI? The guy says, well, you write paragraphs. You must be an AI if you write paragraphs? Oh, mamma mia. Anyway, so I spent some time in the back and forth in that community. In the process, of course, the whole thing with Clovis Harmon, I'm going to try to find some links. There were some interrogations by a legitimate predator catcher of Ed Staires and Clovis Harmon about their interesting careers. I'll find clips of those and put them in the comments. Let me go. I'm sorry, I thought I was live. I'm not. This is an upload. Okay. Anyway, so there I was. And as I said, this was, maybe 2 years ago. And while I'm watching all the back and forth drama in the predcatcher community, this woman, Christy, appears. Now, Christy was in Minnesota. She was a school teacher, middle school and young high school level grades. According to what she herself said, she had been a teacher in Minnesota. She's now an elementary school teacher in Mexico. She speaks with something that sounds like a German accent. Some kind of European, Germanic type of accent. Might be Slavic. Fairly young woman. And heavy-set, blonde woman. And she spoke about her background as having moved to Mexico because one of her children, I don't know how many she had, but this one child, who at that point was about 8 years old, was actually the child of a lover who happened to have been one of Christie's students in Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's in the news lately. That's why I'm thinking about it. Christie's getting herself put in the news lately, too. So, she's living in Mexico. She's apparently established herself as some kind of upstanding citizen down there. She's teaching. Her participation in predcatcher community was as a translator for Spanish and English. And there was, clearly some tension between her and some of the other people in that community. And I myself saw the actual live stream, which did stay up for a while, in which she did something that was really, really creepy. Her daughter walked across the screen, and behind her and walked into the bathroom, which she had set up her camera. And you didn't notice this until something like that happened, because usually the bathroom, you might have just noticed there was a door back there. But she knew, it's her home, she knew when she said, just like I know, I got the camera pointed behind me, you can see a quilt that covers a wardrobe section and some storage boxes. I know what's behind me, right? So she knew what was behind her when she set up, this is from where I'm going to do my streams. And her daughter walked shirtless from another room across the back and into the bathroom. She left that up for a long time, and people were arguing and yelling and screaming about it. She finally took it down. I was watching the whole thing because she was one of the people that came up into the Sewertown circle. Now, Sewertown and predcatchers really were not the only connection between the two of them that we knew about was Ed Staires. Clovis Harmon was a big part of the Sewertown community, went full bore into the predcatcher community in defense of Ed Staires, and that's when they discovered that she had this, at that point, we're talking 2 years ago, we're talking like 2023, 2024, yeah, more like 2024 probably. But she had something going to before YouTube, which means before 2007. She had this Yahoo group, and one of the main people in the predcatcher community had been a partner of hers for all those years. And one of the things I pointed out was, well, if you've been doing predator catching for more than 20 years, you know, at that point, and you've got no clips of news stories on mainstream NBC, ABC, CBS News showing the locals, because all of the predator catchers have these trophy stories where they get into the news, and it's usually the same. They're heroic adults save, you know, help the police. They show the arrest happening. Then they always come on with a disclaimer saying, you really shouldn't be doing this. You know, you could be accidentally arresting innocent people with false accusations. And then they'd say, you know, do not do this at home type of thing. And it's kind of funny. But you know that if a group of people claims they're doing that kind of activity, they're going to have at least a few trophy clips showing that the police work with them and that they have resulted in some arrests. Not one single arrest coming out of either Clovis or her sheriff's department in 20 years, right? On top of it, the FBI discovered she's got a trove of child porn. Her good buddy Ed Staires is facing a warrant put out by the Texas Attorney General for, I think it was like 6 counts or something like that of CP on the computers. There are several other people associated with that whole group that have been in similar predicaments. And as I say, it's the claim that if you have that on your computer, you can say, well, I'm helping catch people, doesn't stand up, because there's no part of legitimate predator catching that requires a person to actually possess that kind of material or even be exposed to it. I mean, if it gets to that point where you have to do that much proving of who you are, you let a professional police undercover handle it at that point. That's beyond good citizenship. And so that was going on. Anyway, this Christie character, the Minnesota teacher who now lives in Mexico. Well, she did that. I was one of the people that pointed out, it's like, hey, you know, quit giving people saying they're just accidental creeps and saying she's just irresponsible and blah-de-blah. She set her camera up to be pointed at the bathroom door. There was no way her daughter could get to the bathroom, where the shower stall was, without being on camera. Now and on top of it, she left that picture up. And she's not the only one. There are all these instances in the sewer town and predator catcher, adjacent let's say predcatcher adjacent communities where these accidents happen, where children are presented to the public, and it's a method, it's a trick to traffic, just like these so-called influencer moms and these parents who want to show you cute videos of their kids. You've got to be very, very careful about that, because your intentions might be innocent. You really are just trying to show off your cute little grandchild. But you're putting that child on stage in front of the entire world, including a whole bunch of people that you do not know are watching, who are taking clips and finding out where the child lives and putting it on the dark web. There's serious stuff going on. But anyway, part of what goes on is that the unsavory types of adults who do traffic children do find ways to put them on screen, and in compromising situations, like a young girl without a blouse on, and then claim, oh, I had no idea. Okay, well, so that brouhaha went on for a while. Then after a while, I had done my bit. I had gotten them to understand that it wasn't all individual personalities, but they definitely had to take note when a professional extortion ring, like the one that runs out of Sewer Town, Sewer King is what they call themselves now, the one that shows the little black rat with the red eyes for an avatar, that group, that, you're dealing with professional extortion ring people. You got to watch your butt, really. And then I feel like I did my bit and I moved on. Of course, Sewer Town never moves on. There's a reason why, the turd that won't flush, that's Sewer Town. Anyway, Terry Joyce is advertising a GoFundMe for the friend of another member of this Sewer Town squad, a guy who goes by the name Geo. And I don't know too much about him, except that he keeps popping up in some of the expose channels, and not in a nice way. Well, all of a sudden, Terry Joyce, she's very good friends, not only with, I wouldn't say she was good friends with that Staires. She's going to claim she doesn't even know. But she was hanging around. She and Clovis Harmon had gotten together to do an ambush on me at one point. So I know she's in that crowd. And she's definitely involved with child trafficking. I mean, there's no question about it. And has been. In fact, she did one of the accidental things. There was a fellow named Jeff, who's dead now. But when he was still alive, and I guess he was quite ill, because he was on camera a few times, and he didn't look like he was in good health. And he had two daughters in the 7 or 8 year old age range. And Terry Joyce, in one of her live streams, where she's talking all about this type of crime, satanic child abuse, and all the stuff that she argues about with David Schroeder and these other people, that's a topic on her channel. And she brought those two little 7-year-old girls, or 7 and 8 year old girls, and put them on screen, totally on screen, had some friendly back and forth chatter with them in the middle of a very adult live stream. And then, by way of introducing who these kids were, she gave their locations. She gave their family sob story of the family hardships that were going on, that they had been through a housing problem, and now their father was very sick, and big, that kind of discussion, while it might be true and it might be real, there might be a real hardship situation there, it's also a hook to pull people in who want to become entangled and have direct contact and have a legitimate story to tell about why. Oh, I'm just helping these children. That's how that's one of the ways child trafficking is done. And Terry Joyce has done it. So Terry Joyce is now presenting this guy Gio as she's promoting a fundraising GoFundMe for this guy who's not raising it for himself but raising it for a friend. Coincidentally, the former Minnesota teacher who's now a Mexico teacher, she's European American in Mexico, so she's a Mexican resident, I suppose, at this point, a citizen of the world. She has a GoFundMe up. Big hardship story trying to help a family, which might be true. Some Mexican family just went through a house fire and lost everything, and she's trying to raise money for them. Her friend Gio is raising money for a friend, and I'm only, it's only my personal opinion here that that's probably what Terry Joyce is doing when she's promoting that GoFundMe. Okay, it all could be true. It could be an innocent attempt to help a Mexican family that's been through a hardship. Go for it. Send them money. Not a crime. But look at what's going on in Minnesota right now. All of a sudden, the well-protected, semi-governmental, non-profit, non-NGO child rescue, child care fraud cases are coming out. The state is screaming and yelling at the feds because it's turned out that, these child care rings, these fake child cares and these child trafficking rings and these funding, fraudulent funding things are well protected by corrupt government. And right now, a certain number of federal agencies are just tearing the whole lid off that can of worms. So while they fight it out in Minnesota, they're losing all the little protected channels that they've had for their money. All of a sudden, this group around this Christie character and Terry Joyce and this Gio Farnsworth character. Gio Farnsworth is one of the predators that David Schroeder's always yelling about in his channel. All of a sudden, they're setting up help a Mexican family. Like, who's going to go down to Mexico and figure out if that's real or not? Are you going to do that? Seriously? You going to go knocking on doors in Mexico and asking Mexican citizens when you're, American Anglo accents, like, we just want to make sure you have the right to this money. It's like, yeah, okay. Sell me another taco. Obviously, it's a very convenient alternative funding channel, in my personal opinion. I shouldn't say obviously, I should say apparently, possibly. It's just very interesting. Minnesota, predator catcher, child porn, professional adult pornography producers, accidental appearances of children on the screen in compromising ways, things that make you go, And that's our drama for tonight. I'm going to go back to finishing my Brain Dead Victorian, and I'll catch up with you later. Denise Matteau, over and out.